Chapter 6 The Adventure of Buckaroo Banzai. One Friday night in the fall semester of 1989, Sunil, who worked for Cornell Cinemas as one of his part-time jobs, was in charge, and Vikram, Amar, Alex, and Raja went to see the movie that Sunil was screening that night. It was one of the days when one of the two on-campus cinemas would play slightly older movies. This night, Sunil had on the bill The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai, the spoof sci-fi movie that centered around the multifaceted Buckaroo Banzai, the rock musician who was also a test pilot, a neurosurgeon, and a physicist. That's right, a physicist. And it had everything in it: comedy, satire, and romance. The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai opens with an amazing scene of Buckaroo Banzai test running his overmodified jet car, which is essentially a Ford E-Series strapped to a jet engine, and can do up to Mach 1. That is the speed of sound, basically an awesome 340 meters per second, which is essentially 770 miles per hour. All Boeing 747-400s cruise much slower than that on their transatlantic journeys at 40,000 feet above sea level. But on that Friday night, Vikram, Amar, Alex, and Raja were in for a treat far more flavorful than just the adventures of Buckaroo Banzai. And none of them knew it. Neither did Sunil. Now, Sunil was an earnest man, and each time he was in charge of screening the movie for Cornell Cinemas, he would diligently do a test run for several minutes well before the cinema opened for the night to ensure that all was in order. However, on that amazing Friday night, Sunil had just made it to the cinema while the audience was settling into their seats. He did not have time to check the film or the projector. That night, Sunil went with what his Cornell Cinema staff told him, that it was all set and they were ready to go. So when the first scene started, with Buckaroo Banzai test running his overmodified jet car, the Ford E-Series strapped to a jet engine that could do up to Mach 1, and Buckaroo Banzai and his band of buddies seemed rather squished on screen. That is, their physical dimensions were vertically compressed. A flushed Sunil donned his deep-rooted sense of responsibility and accountability, rushed to the front of the cinema, had the movie stopped and the house lights turned on, and basically apologized to the audience, explaining that they had the wrong projection lens on that night, and they were going to fetch the correct one, which was in the other Cornell Cinema auditorium on campus. He took full accountability. There was no hesitation, no hiding, no blaming. He just took it full on. That was Sunil. With the correct lens installed, the movie was restarted, and the audience got the movie treat of a lifetime. No longer was Buckaroo Banzai compressed. His buddies weren't compressed either. They were huge. Their heads projected on the roof of the cinema, and their feet extended right to the floor. In fact, right up to about halfway down the main aisle. And Buckaroo Banzai's car flew from left to right at Mach 1, but it did not fly from the left to the right of the screen. It flew from the left to the right of the entire cinema, and it had an ever-so-brief moment on the screen before it flew off on the right-hand side onto the right wall of the cinema and then out of sight. This was better than 3D. This was better than IMAX. This was like 3D plus IMAX on drugs. And for that audience, The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai would mean something else forever. Sunil ran to the front of the auditorium. He was panting and clearly red by now, even quite angry with himself. He did not know what happened. He took responsibility nonetheless, but the audience loved it. They did not boo him or shout at him. They simply cheered him on. And Alex, Vikram, Raja, and Amar were in splits. They didn't know what had happened either, but they were happy that Sunil was okay, that the audience was okay. And they got up, and Alex put his 2 index fingers in his mouth and whistled. By the time the cheering subsided a few minutes later, Sunil was already on the phone with his supervisor asking for help, asking for guidance as to what the fuck to do. After all, The correct lens had yielded even worse results. It was then that Sunil realized what had happened, and he would relate it to Amar later on, and they would have a hearty laugh over it. What an amazing coincidence! What a brilliant fuck-up! Maybe it was meant to be. They did not know, but the voice knew. It always does. What had happened was that the universe had brought about a series of events which, when connected together, had yielded a very funny night. Sunil was late that evening getting to the cinema. He had no time to test the lens nor the movie. His staff told him all was good, and so he started the screening. However, a small factoid that neither Sunil nor his staff were aware of at the time is what transformed the evening to a truly hilarious one and made the Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai truly larger than life. The movie, The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai, actually begins with a few scenes where the director, W.D. Richter, intentionally has Buckaroo Banzai and his buddies and his car and everything in the scene vertically compressed. It's just part of the spoof, part of the satire. So in fact, the lens that was originally on the projector was good. It was the correct one. And Sunil's staff were correct in telling their manager that they were good to go. When Sunil replaced the original lens with another one to compensate for the vertical compression, he actually overexpanded the projected images, vertically and laterally. And the results were beyond hilarious. And Amar would remember this night forever, and he would fondly remember the adventures of Buckaroo Banzai, and of Sunil, and of Raja, and of Alex, and of Vikram, forever.